Good morning, everyone. Wasn't that the perfect song for a dark morning? I think this is how we have the lights most Sundays, but it seems really theatrical to me today because you guys are in the dark and I'm on stage here. Speaking of the storm, I'd like to draw your attention to this wonderful altar that was done by Mark Cooper, and how amazing it is, the light in the darkness. And if we just think about our philosophy and our teachings, this altar dedicated to the storm is about God's protection of us. It's about nurturing the plants with the water, and it's about the light being everywhere, even in the darkness. So what a perfect altar. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. And it's on this little grassy covered, floor here, so that it indicates that all the greenery is going to just explode very, very soon. This it's a really mild storm. I mean, as far as the temperature goes, it was 60 degrees driving down here. So anyway, enough about that. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Let's see how I'm going to do this. Anybody here for the very first time? I thought so. I thought we were all family. And I also want to say something about the numbers of people here. I was expecting that, actually, there are more of you here than I was expecting. So thank you for braving the storm. But what I noticed when I was sitting up here is that you here fill the room for me. It feels full of us, of our love, of our support. And so I just want you to know that I get that, and you are the community. So thank you very much for being here. All right. Okay. Oops, I did that incorrectly. This is the new theme for our whole year. The theme was introduced last Sunday for a small group of people in the Learning Center, but the theme is values-based spiritual living. So the values that we're going to talk about every single week are ideas to live by, or divine qualities to live through. They are available at every moment, in every circumstance, and so of course we are going to explore how to live your values when times are difficult, because you can be loving when you're feeling loving, and it's pretty easy. But we of course want to learn how to use these divine qualities and high values in every single moment of our lives. And the first week, when we didn't have the PowerPoint, but I talked about values, and we had Pat's wonderful theme image here. It really got some people going about, how do I live my value of peace when all this is going on in the world, and how can I be authentic with people if I'm not authentic with myself? And so it was a way of getting to life lessons that I think is going to be really valuable if we work it, because we can't just contemplate the values without living through them. We can't think about them and not work them and have them be any value to us. So, as was true last year and for many years before that, we have a theme for each month. And so the theme for this month is spiritual living. So when you think about that, spiritual living, I mean, we're the centers for spiritual living. This is like the most basic idea that we have. And so I just came up with a few things, that knowing that we're not alone, that we share the life and the mind of God, that we're all powerful, we're all good, there's enough of everything, we're enough, we're good enough, and that God qualities are available at every single moment and in and through every single circumstance. So another thing that we're going to do every single week is we're going to have this slide here, and it says some values to hold today. So I want to let you know that you're going to be working with the values that are applicable to you, but I'm going to be talking about some values every single week. Like this week, the first one is, or something that is going to be manifested in my message, is authenticity, how to be the real you. Achievement, the value of being useful, of giving our gifts, of living the path that we came to live, of doing what we came to do instead of just sit around. And lastly, wisdom, going deep with our thinking and not just passing on statements that are untrue or shallow or not reasoned through, that we use our mental capacities to think deeply and come up with wise ways of being for us and for those around us. So in your bulletin, this is probably going to last through January until we all get a chance to really look at it, there's a list of values right here. Now, these are not all the values that there are. I got this list off the internet. There are more than many lists of values. And I would encourage you to go to the internet yourself and to look through some of these lists of values to see what are the ones that are your growing edge. Then right below this list of values is a little box, and this is going to be in every single bulletin for the whole year. This says, living my values. The value that I will express and live through this week is. So what I want all of us to do is to think of a value or let it come to us. You can let it come to you during Sunday service and write it in this place and then put the bulletin on your refrigerator or on your bathroom mirror or wherever your power place in your house is so that you can see what's going on in your spiritual community and you will be reminded of the value that you are living through that week. And I'm going to give you some more specific directions at the end of the talk, but just to get you thinking because it might pop into your mind at any moment and you don't want to like miss it. It'll come again if you miss it. So also what happens in January and what a lot of spiritual communities are going to do this month is to review the basic principles in the first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind. This is something that a lot of communities do every single year. We haven't done it every single year that I've been here, but a lot of years, and we're definitely going to do it this year. So the first 4 chapters are the thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it. And if you mastered what was in any one of these chapters, not all 4, if you mastered what was in one chapter, you would have the essence of the philosophy that we teach in every class and on every single Sunday. So I'm going to talk about the thing, the way, what, and how. And so we're going to get it all in January, and then we'll just coast through the rest of the year because we'll be masterful. So today, I'm going to talk about the concept and experience of God, Source, Creator, the pattern that connects. The title of my talk is this: How can the biggest idea help the smallest challenge? So the biggest idea, of course, is the infinite presence. And what is necessary for you to have any sort of spiritual living experience is that this idea is useful to you, that in some way you can use it with anything that is going on in your life right now and have it be better. So Ernest Holmes had the same challenge that we all have with this idea. In trying to describe the infinite in the words that we have at our disposal is impossible. Because whatever we think God is more. So on page 26, which is the second page of text in the book, Our founder writes this: "The study of science of mind is a study of first cause, spirit, mind, or that invisible essence, that ultimate stuff and intelligence from which everything comes, the power back of creation, the thing itself." So I imagine him coming up with these words and trying, using English, to suggest to the reader the infinite nature of God. There's no way that we can envision infinite, but if you think that God is all of the universe and as deep into the subatomic particles as we can imagine and more, God is past, present, and future and everything about the timeline and more. God is everything that we say is good and everything that we say is not good and more. God is more than anything. So the best description that I ever got of this infinite presence came from Rocco Errico. Rocco Errico writes for the Science of Mind magazine. He is an Aramaic scholar, and I heard him speak at a convention before I was in the ministry, before I was a minister. And what he said was that the name of God, one of the names of God in Aramaic that he likes is Allah. And he said the most wonderful thing is that you have absolutely no idea what that means. And that, because every other word that we have for God, source, creator, infinite, we already have some ideas about. And what his point was is that the infinite one can't have any ideas that contract it or put bounds around it because it's infinite. So I wanted to share with you again another word for God that Jesus used in the Lord's Prayer, and that is abun. So I'm going to start here. This is the infinite. It's a pretty good picture of the infinite, you know? So the sound for what has been translated as our Father is ah, bua, oo, and n. So say that with me. Abun, abun. This, in the language that Jesus probably spoke, is what he said when he began the prayer that says, he said to his disciples, "Pray in this way." It has come down to us as our Father, but listen to this. The word means something, but each sound means something. Ah is absolute. In the writing, it says, "The only being, the pure oneness and unity, source of all power and stability, echoing to the ancient sacred sound of Al and the Aramaic word for God, Allah." The next sound, the bua sound, means birthing. And it suggests a cosmic birthing process. So when you think of birth, you think of the arrival of something, the arrival of a new being. So a birthing, a creation, a flow of blessing, as if from the interior of this oneness to us. Imagine that. From the interior of the infinite to us. This is the name of God, but it is also the process of creation. Because oo is breath. The breath or spirit that carries this flow, echoing the sound of breathing and including all forces we now call magnetism, wind, electricity, and more. And then the n sound is the vibration becoming form. So the writers say the vibration of this creative breath from oneness as it touches and interpenetrates form. There must be a substance that this force touches, moves, and changes. This sound echoes the earth, and the body here vibrates as we intone the whole name slowly, Abun. And so the name of God is the entire pattern of life birthing itself. God birthing itself, this infinite essence, the absolute, making itself into things by the breath or by speaking. So when it says in the Bible, let there be light, this birthing of light from the center of the absolute into form. And this is a process that is not by choice. I'll do it here, but I won't do it here. This is what happens in our universe, is that things come into being out of the center of God. This is the most beautiful, absolute, precious, amazing idea that I can grasp a little bit about. And every time I talk about it, I grasp a little bit more, and that's why I do it once a year, or at least you've heard this Aramaic talk, is that if I can feel this in me, I can be a better, more powerful co-creator of the world around me, because we are of God. God breathed us into existence, and we don't have a different process than this. This is the process. This is the process that we use for co-creation. So back to the chapter. Ernest Holmes does not quote Aramaic, but he does have his own word for this process, and it was confusing to me when I was a new student, because the word that Ernest Holmes uses is mind. Mind. Mind is the word that Ernest uses for the whole creative process that I just went over. And it's something to get used to in this denomination. I remember when I was in, it was called Science of Mind 1 way back in the 70s. And this was, I thought, mind, well, that's kind of psychological. That's what I think with. But this is on page 28 now. Mind, the thing, spirit, causation, is beyond and yet not beyond our grasp. Beyond in that it is so big, within in that wherever we grasp it, we are it to the extent that we grasp it. But since it is infinite, we can never encompass it. We shall never encompass God, and yet we shall always be in God and of God, operating in creation the same way that God does. So, as I was in this denomination longer, it made more and more sense to me, because mind in the psychological terms is the thinking process, and mind in the Science of Mind textbook is the creative process. And the cool thing is, one cannot be separated from the other. The thinking process and the creative process are one in the same in our denomination. It was written, I think Shakespeare said it, but Ernest and Jesus and everybody else would have said, yeah. As a man thinketh, so is he. Or was that Emerson?
It's the Bible.
Uh-huh.
It's in the Bible.
As a man thinketh, so is he?
Proverbs, I think.
Okay. Proverbs, Emerson, Shakespeare, all of it, okay? So when we are referring to the creative process, we are talking about the law of mind, all right? So this is the simplified law of mind. What we think about, what we ponder, what we pray in, what we worry about, what we talk about, what we watch on TV, what we engage our thinking mind about is formed. It is birthed right into our lives. Because God has given us everything in potential, What we breathe into existence by gossip or by prayer comes straight from the heart of the infinite, wrapped like a present and given into our lives. That is the creative process. So some of this that is in our mind, and some of this that we mutter about, and some of this that we, all of those arguments that we preview before they even happen as we drive along. This comes out of my mind, of course. No, none of you do that? It's creative. The thought process is creative. Some of this is conscious and a lot of it is subconscious. Now, last week I talked about the power of the mind from this book, Language, Thought, and Reality. If you loved it and you didn't get a chance to look it over last week, I brought it again. I'm not going to read from it because I have an equally good example from Houston Smith. Houston Smith, the religious philosopher who passed into the next expression this week as a very, very, very old and wise man. So, what he noticed is that our language has a lot of words about war in the way we speak about anything. So, she lost her battle with cancer. Or she is a survivor. Or he was smitten by her. You know what that word smite means from the Bible? It means chopping off their head. He was smitten with love. Or we fight the good fight. Now, fighting the good fight, how many times have you heard that? And it means, living life well, supposedly. But it's couched in such violent terms. I came out on top of that one. Or, I won the battle, but I lost the war. Meaning, I won the argument, but still nothing has changed in my relationship. So many idioms that have to do with war. So this is written now by Houston Smith in his book, Religions of Man. When Mount Everest was scaled, the phrase commonly used in the West to describe the feat was the conquest of Everest. An Oriental whose writings have been deeply influenced by Taoism remarked, "We would put the matter differently. We would speak of befriending Everest." Can you feel how that feels different? The conquest of Everest, the befriending of Everest, and the consciousness behind both of those statements, and how that consciousness is creative in our lives. And so this is part of the wisdom value, that we examine everything that comes up to the surface of consciousness as far as, what are we saying? What am I bringing into my life? So this idea is very simple, but it can be oversimplified. And I want to bring that out today too. So this is from page 30. And please excuse the negative, or the masculine pronoun. That's just the way Ernest Holmes writes. Man, by thinking, can bring into his experience whatsoever he desires. Now, if you took that as in a kind of a lightweight understanding, you might think that my mental work will change the world. If I bring in anything that I desire, the world out there is going to change for me because I'm going to speak the right words and I'm going to manipulate the world so that it changes in my favor. I want to be very clear on this. Mental and spiritual work changes us. Spiritual living is to change us. Often it feels like the world has changed because we are noticing different things. But it is us who have changed, and make no mistake about that. So, what we need to learn, and you can learn this in class, you can learn this with a practitioner, you can actually learn it with a prayer partner, is personal, effective level of creation work. So I'm going to give you some extremes. At a very global level, we can say, oh, I accept the highest and greatest. Now, that's better than saying, what calamity is going to befall me today? But it's not very specific. And so what do you mean by that? What do you mean by the highest and greatest? Because if you are unclear, then what you're going to get is a reflection of your consciousness that, yes, from the center of God reflects your consciousness. And if you're not clear, you're not going to get clear results. So then a very, very, very detailed idea would be, I claim $1 million. Now, for a lot of us, $1 million sounds like a really, really good idea. But this is a great truth that almost 100% of people who win the lottery 1 year later are exactly where they were or less well off than before they won the lottery. Because why? Because they have not changed to become a person that can manage wealth. They are the exact same people unless they do really big spiritual work. And so what happens is that this event, circumstance, just dissolves because our consciousness outpictures as our life. So the middle ground is what I am very comfortable with. More specific than, oh, that's just the greatest and highest is what I accept, or a very, very, very detailed demand of the universe, which doesn't turn out very well for anybody. And that is to ask ourselves these questions. What experience do I want to enhance, or what experience do I want to shift, and what do I want instead? Okay? So you are going after the values of life. You are going after the qualities of being and letting the infinite universe bring you the specifics. Does this make sense to you? Yes? Yes? Okay, good. So let's use the example of the $1 million. So let's say, what do I want? Well, I'm going to say I want $1 million. That's it. That's flat out it. When we do effective work at that middle range of being specific but not outlining, is the way Ernest would say it, is we ask ourselves, if I had $1 million, how would I feel? How many of you think you would like $1 million? Yeah, well, pretty nice, yeah. If you had $1 million, how would you feel? And this is some of the things that I came up with. If I had $1 million, I would feel free to live my life in time and in purchasing and in choosing experiences and helping others. And I would never have to ask how much something cost, because I would be free of that, the limitation, the way of looking through life and saying how much does it cost. Or I would authentically be able to give my gifts without worrying about the reciprocal nature of the universe. You know, how am I going to get, if I give this, how am I going to get back? I would feel like I belonged in life, achieving my dreams, giving my gifts, being useful. And I would feel effective. I would feel like I would be useful in the world. This is what $1 million reminds me of. Now, can you imagine other ways that I could feel free, belonging, and effective other than getting $1 million? Yeah, I can too. And if that's what I really want, that is my soul saying, this is how I want to spend my years of breath, is being this way. And I will be presented with time after time after time after time of being able to live those experiences. So, this is the lesson on the thing itself. Let's review a little bit. So, I talked about being our authentic self and living the life that we came to live. I talked about being useful and achieving the dreams that we have in our heart. And I talked about going deep, deep with our thinking about spiritual principle. I also talked about freedom. I also talked about power, authentic power. I also talked about faith in being able to use the law effectively. So, back to your assignment here. What I would like you to do is determine a quality that is fascinating to you, that is fascinating, and write it here. And declare to yourself that this is the value that I'm going to live through this week. Then what I want you to do is preview how that might come up in your life. Well, I might feel free when I go on my walk in the morning. That would be an easy thing. But then you choose a challenging, you imagine there might be a challenge to my freedom, and how would I still live through that value? Because remember, what we want to do is get more and more and more skillful with these values. So you preview it, and then you live it. You live through it for the whole week, and then at the end of the week you review. So it's choose, prepare, preview, live it, and review it. Okay? You going to do that? This is the second of 52 weeks. So you got some work to do. Okay? So I want to get back to the poetic, beautiful, glorious Aramaic idea about the infinite. And so for our inner work, I'm going to begin by reading you the Lord's Prayer, translated from the Aramaic. O birther, father, mother of the cosmos, focus your light within us. Make it useful. Create your reign of unity now. Your one desire then acts with ours, as in all light, so in all forms. Grant us what we need each day in bread and insight. Loose the cords of mistakes binding us as we release the strands we hold of others' guilt. Don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back. From you is born all ruling will, the power and the life to do, the song that beautifies all. From age to age it renews. Truly, power to these statements. May they be the ground from which all my actions grow. I seal this prayer with faith, love, and trust.